When silence finally broke me, I thought leaving that house would hurt the most. I was wrong. The real pain didn't hit when Eleanor handed me that suitcase, or when Daniel walked past me without looking back, or even when the front door closed behind me like a final sentence. The real pain came later, when I realized how completely I had been erased. A place with no name. The bus station smelled like oil, dust, and old coffee. I sat on a cold metal bench, my suitcase between my feet, staring at a departure board I didn't care about. I wasn't waiting for a bus. I was waiting for something else. Clarity, maybe. Or permission to fall apart. People rushed past me. Couples laughed. A mother scolded her child. Life continued, aggressively normal, while mine felt like it had ended quietly, without ceremony. I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. Not from Daniel, not from Eleanor, not from anyone. For years, I had bent myself into shapes that fit their comfort. I had stayed quiet, obedient, small. And now that I was gone, no one even noticed. That realization hurt more than the betrayal. The call I was afraid to make. My father's name hovered on my screen for a long time. I hadn't spoken to him properly in months. Every time he asked how I was doing, I lied. I'm fine, Dad. Everything's good. I didn't want him to hear the weakness in my voice. I didn't want him to know I had failed at marriage, at standing up for myself, at being strong. But sitting there with nowhere to go, I finally understood something. I wasn't strong because I stayed. I stayed because I was afraid. My fingers shook as I pressed call. He answered on the second ring. Hey, he said gently. I was just thinking about you. That was all it took. My voice broke. Going home as someone else. My father didn't ask questions on the phone. He didn't demand explanations or details. He just said, I'm coming to get you. When I saw his car pull up outside the station, something inside me collapsed completely. I cried the way I hadn't cried in years. Messy, loud, uncontrollable. He didn't tell me to stop. He didn't tell me to be strong. He just held me. At home, my old bedroom looked exactly the same. Same pale walls, same bookshelf, same small desk by the window where I used to dream about my future. I sat on the bed and realized how young I had been when I thought marriage would save me. That night, I slept for almost 12 hours. For the first time in years, no one told me when to wake up, telling the whole truth. It took days before I could speak about everything. When I finally did, my father listened quietly, his expression changing only slightly, jaw tightening, eyes sharpening. I told him about Eleanor's control, about the money, about the isolation, about the affair, about the documents I didn't remember signing. When I finished, the room felt heavy. That wasn't just cruelty, my father said slowly. That was calculated. I looked at him, confused. They didn't just hurt you emotionally, he continued. They exploited you, legally, financially. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. What happened to me had a name. The man Eleanor underestimated. Eleanor always spoke about my father with mild disdain. Simple man, she said once. Ordinary. She never asked what he did for a living. She never cared. If she had, she might have acted differently. My father had spent decades dealing with cases involving coercive control, financial manipulation, and abuse hidden behind respectable facades. This kind of thing thrives on silence, and they were confident you'd stay silent. I felt sick because he was right. When the past started making sense, as we went through my old emails, bank statements, and documents, patterns began to emerge. Small transfers, changed passwords, emails forwarded without my knowledge. Things I had brushed off as mistakes suddenly looked intentional. They didn't just take advantage of you, my father said. They planned it. I thought about all the times Eleanor insisted on handling things for me. All the moments Daniel told me to trust them. Trust. The word felt bitter now. The first letter. The first legal notice went out quietly. No threats, no accusations, just questions. Requests for documentation, requests for clarification. Eleanor responded within hours. Her email was polite, almost cheerful, but underneath the courtesy, I could sense panic. Daniel's message came later that night. Can we talk? I didn't reply. For the first time, I wasn't rushing to fix something I didn't break. Guilt is a strange weapon. Daniel showed up at my father's house a week later. He looked tired, older. I never meant for things to go this far, he said, eyes downcast. I waited for the apology. It never came. Instead, he talked about pressure, about his mother, about how hard it was being caught in the middle. I listened, strangely calm. I was never in the middle, I said finally. I was underneath. He didn't know what to say to that. Eleanor loses control. When Eleanor realized legal professionals were involved, her tone changed completely. She called, she left left voicemails. She demanded meetings. "You're being dramatic," she snapped in one message. "Families don't do this to each other. Families also don't steal." I thought. For years, her power came from intimidation and certainty, the belief that no one would challenge her. Now, for the first time, someone was. The investigation. The process was slow, methodical, unemotional, which I learned was exactly how justice worked. I was asked to recount everything again and again. Each time hurt a little less. Each time I felt a little stronger. They uncovered forged signatures, unauthorized access, undisclosed transfers. Things I had brushed off as mistakes suddenly looked intentional. Learning to speak without apologizing. Living with my father again forced me to confront something uncomfortable. I apologized constantly. Sorry for taking up space. Sorry for being emotional. Sorry for existing loudly. One evening, my father stopped me. "You don't have to apologize for surviving." That sentence stayed with me. When the truth comes out, Daniel tried one last time to convince me to settle quietly. "Mom's reputation will be ruined," he said. I looked at him and finally understood. He wasn't worried about justice. He was worried about inconvenience. "I lost years of my life," I replied. "Reputation can recover. I had to rebuild myself." He left without another word. The woman I was becoming. Something shifted during those months. I started waking up early again, not because I was told to, but because I wanted to. I started writing, walking, breathing deeply without fear of being judged. I realized how much of myself I had buried just to keep peace. Peace that was never real, waiting for the outcome. The final hearing loomed ahead. I wasn't scared. Not anymore. Whatever happened, I'd already reclaimed something Eleanor could never touch again. My voice. I used to think justice would feel loud. I imagined shouting, crying, public apologies. I imagined Eleanor finally breaking down in front of everyone, admitting what she did to me. But justice didn't arrive like that. It arrived quietly, in envelopes, timestamps, bank records, and calm voices that didn't care about her authority or her pride. The morning of the first hearing, I woke up before my alarm. My chest felt tight, but not fear. It was something else, something steadier. Like my body already knew I wasn't the same woman who had left that house with one suitcase. I wore a simple outfit, no makeup, no jewelry. I didn't want armor. I wanted clarity. When we walked into the building, Eleanor was already there. She looked smaller, not physically, but something in her posture had changed. The sharp certainty she always carried was on. She wasn't in control of this room, and she knew it. She didn't look at me. Daniel did. His eyes followed me as I took my seat. There was something unreadable in his expression. Regret, maybe, or fear, or the realization that silence had consequences. The proceedings began slowly. Names, dates, formalities. Then the evidence started seeing. Not me, the evidence. Transaction histories appeared on screens. Transfers made late at night. Accounts accessed from devices that weren't mine. Documents signed when I was out of the state. I watched Eleanor's face tighten as each piece was presented. She whispered to her lawyer, then again, then again. For years, she had spoken over me. For years, she had controlled every conversation. Now, she couldn't interrupt the truth. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up calmly. My voice didn't shake. I talked about isolation, about control disguised as concern, about how slowly my world had shrunk until I couldn't recognize myself anymore. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I had already done my crying in rooms where no one listened. This time, people were listening. Daniel was asked to testify next. He tried to frame himself as a victim, a son caught between loyalty and love, a man under pressure. But pressure doesn't explain access codes. Pressure doesn't explain forged consent. When he was asked why he never told me about the financial changes, he paused. That pause said more than any confession. Eleanor finally spoke. Her voice was sharp at first, defensive, accusatory. She said she was protecting her son. She said I was ungrateful. She said I misunderstood her intentions. Then the questions got specific. Dates, amounts, authorizations. Her confidence cracked. She raised her voice. She blamed me. She blamed stress. She blamed everyone except herself. And in that moment, I saw her clearly, not as a powerful woman who had ruled that house, but as someone terrified of losing control. The hearing ended without drama. No shouting, no collapse, just a quiet acknowledgement that things were far worse than they appeared. Over the following weeks, more details emerged. Emails where she instructed Daniel on what to say to me. Messages discussing how long they could keep me unaware. Notes about waiting until she's completely dependent. Reading those words felt like swallowing glass, but it also did something else. It freed me from doubt. I had spent years wondering if I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too weak. I wasn't. I was manipulated. Daniel stopped contacting me after that. Eleanor tried once. Her voicemail was different this time. She didn't sound angry. She sounded desperate. She talked about family, about forgiveness, about mistakes. She never said, sorry. I deleted the message. The final final ruling came on a gray morning. All documents were declared invalid. All transferred assets were ordered returned. Penalties were imposed, restrictions enforced. The system didn't punish her emotionally. It punished her precisely, and that was worse. When it was over, I walked out of that building and stood in the cold air, breathing deeply. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty. Then slowly, something else filled that space. Relief. Not because they lost, but because I no longer carried what they did to me. Eleanor avoided public places after that. People talk, and once a narrative shifts, it never really goes back. Daniel moved away. I heard that through mutual acquaintances. He started over somewhere new, telling a version of the story where he was misunderstood. I stopped caring which version people believed. I was done explaining. What surprised me most wasn't the legal outcome. It was how different I felt inside. I didn't flinch when my phone rang anymore. I didn't apologize before speaking. I didn't shrink. I had learned something painfully simple. Silence protects a person who causes harm, not the one who endures it. For a long time, I believed staying quiet made me strong. It didn't. Speaking did. And even now, when I think about the woman I used to be, the one who tried so hard to keep peace at her own expense, I don't feel anger. I feel compassion. She survived something she didn't yet have the words for, and I gave her those words.